Hello, welcome to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we'll be reading 1 Kings chapter 11. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Shamash, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all the strange wives which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, Forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake which I have chosen. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass, when David was in Edom, and Joab the captain of the host was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. For 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom. That Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt. Hadad, being yet a little child, and they arose out of Midian, and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt, unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, which gave him an house, and appointed him victuals, and gave him land. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of Taphanes the queen, and the sister of Taphanes bare him Genubath his son, whom Taphanes weaned in Pharaoh's house, and Genubath was in Pharaoh's household among the sons of Pharaoh. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab the captain of the host was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, Let me depart, that I may go to mine own country. Then Pharaoh said unto him, But what hast thou lacked with me, that behold, thou seekest to go to thine own country? And he answered, Nothing. Howbeit, let me go in anywise. And God stirred him up another adversary, Rezon, the son of Eliada, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zobah. And he gathered unto him, and became a captain over a band, when David slew them of Zobah. And they went to Damascus, and dwelt therein, and reigned in Damascus. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, beside the mischief that Hadad did, and he abhorred Israel, and reigned over Syria. And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zerida, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Millo, and repaired the breaches of the city of David his father. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, and Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. And it came to pass at that time, when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him in the way, and he had clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him, and rent it in 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, Take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee. But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. Because that they have forsaken me, and have worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Shamash, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David my servant's sake, whom I chose because he kept my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. And unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light always before me in Joram. In Jerusalem, this city which I have chosen me to put my name there. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shall be king over Israel. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and wilt walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. And I will for this afflict the seed of David, but not forever. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, and to Shishak king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. In 1 Kings 10, the Queen of Sheba hears of Solomon's successful kingdom. She visits him to investigate. The current chapter, 1 Kings 11, King Solomon disobeys God, marrying women specifically forbidden to the Israelites. Solomon builds temples for the gods of these women. Solomon dies in this chapter. Summarizing 1 Kings chapter 11, I just want to share something really quickly. At the beginning of the King James, we read, but King Solomon. When we look at the New Living Translation, we see now King Solomon. When we look here at the Christian Standard, there is no word before, just starting the sentence with King Solomon. Being able to identify parts of speech helps to streamline a block of text into a very basic main idea. This skill is useful because it helps to get through the text more quickly. And so when reading a long text like this antiquated, all the tools that you have in your arsenal will be helpful in progressing. The word but is commonly used as a conjunction, okay? And we also see a conjunction, but and the word and, the most common conjunctions used. Do you see how and is functioning where it's adding information to the sentence? This is how a word would function as a conjunction, adding information, joining parts of the sentence together. The thing about this, the term at the top encompasses all the entries beneath it. So when we scroll down, though it's most commonly used as a conjunction, we also see it used as an adverb. The word now is normally used as an adverb. And an adverb, this definition to me is a bit confusing, but you can tell an adverb because it answers the questions when, where, how much, how long, how often. Okay. But when we look at the word now and we look at the entries below, we scroll down and we see that now is also used as a conjunction. So this is why we see those two words different. And because they're interchangeable and their functions mean so many things, it can be removed because we understand that this is not of utmost importance. Of utmost importance, we need to know who the sentence is about and what he did. So King Solomon loved women, okay, Pharaoh's daughter. He married women from these other places. That's the most important part of the sentence. And so I hope that I illustrated that well, but this is just something that in order to pick up that pattern, it just has to be pointed out. And so this example was not extremely impactful, but I just want to point that out when I use it myself. And if it is something that's I can just point out, great. So While we're on this verse, Solomon loved many strange women, and these are women that their tribes appear earlier in the Bible. So in the book of Genesis, we go through these epic catalogs, so and so who begat so and begat so and so. Well, those things are not just there for no reason. It's because these groups of people show up again now. So we're going to examine the Moabites and the Ammonites. Genesis 19 is the infamous story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot and his two daughters are saved by angels. And once they leave, they go to a cave in the mountains. And what happens? The two daughters get Lot drunk and take turns having sex with him. They both end up pregnant. And at the end of Genesis 19, we learn that out of that, there's two tribes of people produced, the Moabites and the Ammonites. So these are inbred populations. And Solomon is marrying women from these inbred populations. So the Moabites and Ammonites are both from Genesis 19. We get the Edomites from Genesis 36. Genesis chapter 36, we get the Edomites. The Edomites are descendants of Esau. So quickly, I just want to point something out. We see that he married two women from Canaan. But remember, it isn't until we get to the book of Exodus that God makes a law to not marry into these people. This connects back to Noah because Noah cursed Canaan earlier in Genesis, and he curses him to serve his relatives. So Abraham is a descendant of Shem, and let me check. Okay, so we are here in Genesis 11, verse 10. This is the account of Shem's family. Okay, Shem has Abram, or Shem has Abram is a descendant of Shem. Okay, I didn't go through it all, but you see here in verse 26, Abram is mentioned down here. The significance is when we go to Genesis 9, and Noah curses Canaan, he says, may God expand the territory of Japheth and Shem, and Canaan will be Shem's servant. Okay, so we see back here, Genesis 9, where Canaan is cursed. When we get to Abraham's prophecy in Genesis 16, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 11. Okay, it's 12. At this time, Abram traveled to the land. At the time, it was inhabited by Canaanites. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I'll give this land to your descendants. Okay, so Abram, again, is a descendant of Shem. The Canaanites were cursed by Noah to serve Shem. So we get to this prophecy in Genesis 12, and Abram is getting that same thing where, okay, you're going to take over the land of the Canaanites. So I hope I'm illustrating that clearly. I want to keep bringing it up because that information that we got in Genesis was not useless. We were supposed to sort of build on it as we go and reach back and look at how this connects. So now that we're in First Kings, the Israelites have settled into the land of Canaan. So this is that prophecy, or that it's coming from Noah. Okay. So, okay, we know that the Moabites and the Ammonites are from Genesis 19 with Lot. The Edomites are from Genesis 36, descendants of Esau. And Esau and Jacob were twins, right? Jacob gets his name Israel in Genesis 32 when he's wrestling with the man. Okay, and his name gets changed to Israel. So it isn't until the Israelites go to uh, Egypt to escape famine, and that generation dies out, and the next generation they multiply, and it isn't until Exodus that God says, "Don't marry the Canaanites." So that could, you know, that could have been why Esau's children bloodline wasn't chosen. But he also married a daughter of Ishmael, and was, you know, Ishmael was born to Abraham when he had sex with his handmaiden because he didn't think that he was going to have a child. And, it's that illegitimate birth thing. He had a penchant for women like that, a penchant for people like that. And so, that could have been the reason why Esau wasn't chosen, because Jacob did deceive Esau, but Jacob's bloodline was chosen to be God's chosen people. And so, uh, then also quickly, I want to point out the Zidonians and the Hittites. Okay. So, this is chapter 9. Nope, chapter 10. Canaan's oldest son was Sidon, ancestor of the Sidonians. So, when I looked it up, this Z and the S, it does refer to the same people. And when we look here, we do see the King James does spell it with a Z, but when we look at the New Living Translation, we see it spelled with an S. We see it spelled with an S in the Christian Standard. Okay, but it's referring to that same group of people. So King Solomon is marrying women from these inbred tribes, the tribe of Esau. Um, People from, and both of these people are from the Canaanites family. So we have Sidon, the ancestor of the Sidonians, and then we have the Hittites. Hittites are also called children of Heath, but Heath was the ancestor of the Hittites, and that's a Canaanite tribe. So he's marrying, you know, these people. In verse 2, it says that the Lord had clearly instructed the people, stay away from these Canaanites. Don't make any agreements with them. This was in Exodus 34. Be careful never to make a treaty. It says, I will go ahead of you, drive out these peoples, okay? And be careful to never make a treaty with them because they will tear down their way of life, because they will turn you away from me. Okay? So this is referring to Exodus 34. That was in my margin of my hard copy of the King James. We go to verses 3 and 4. Solomon had 300 wives of royal birth, princesses, and 300 concubines. So just want to point out there's two different words used for these types of women. The word "and" is a conjunction, adding information to the sentence. So sometimes there is a discrepancy with understanding that wives and concubines, they're not the same thing. Okay, a concubine did not have the same status as a wife, though they might have received similar perks of being with the king. Nevertheless, all 1,000 women, because that's how many, turned King Solomon's heart away from God. We just saw that with Samson, right? Okay. says in verse 5 that Solomon worshiped these other gods, okay? The goddess of the Sidonians, the Canaanite goddess, Molech, the god of the inbreds. And then he began building shrines. And what's so significant about David is that he built the first temple of Israel, the first national temple. It was so elaborate, it was a big deal. The Bible goes through all those measurements because it was special. And then he gets these women and he decides to start building for them. And honestly, what this sounds like to me is because all 1,000 women, you can't really spend time with them and be a king and be a parent. So you appease the women by building them temples. And he might not have all the way believed in it, but he did this to appease the women so he could still have them. That's what I think. And to be honest, that sounds like something a man would do, in my opinion. Verse 6, we learn that Solomon did evil and did not follow the Lord completely. All right? And God was very angry with Solomon because he appeared to him twice. So when we want to ask the question, why doesn't God appear? Why doesn't God just have a disembodied voice to just tell us something? Because he already did that. He already came to people. He already gave visions. He already performed miracles. He already manifested and people were scared of him. He already did it all. He just said, you know what? I'll die for you. I'll just show you. I'll become a man. I'll die for you. And that still isn't enough for people to not take his name in vain, not disrespect Christianity. Okay? It's not enough to make people even want to read the Bible to see if if the God of this Bible is even what somebody else has told you it is. Okay, reading the Bible isn't even a requirement of seminary school, meaning to become a preacher, you don't have to read the Bible. You can really just pick scripture from here and there. I don't even know what the school is based on if you don't have to read the entire Bible. If you're reading classes on the Bible, other people's perspective on the Bible, because we get to the end and there's a new book introduced, the book of the Acts of Solomon. That doesn't even appear in the Bible. We already saw the book of Jasher. Verses 9 through 12, this is narration. When we get to verse 11, God says to Solomon, since you didn't obey me, I'm going to tear the kingdom away from you. But I'm not going to do it while you're alive. I'm going to tear it away from your son. He's only going to be able to be king of one tribe. So the same uh, messed up foundation that uh, David had, where he was anointed to be king over all Israel, but only one tribe accepted him as king and honored him, and he had a fractured reign. That's what's going to happen to Solomon's son, and Solomon's going to die in this chapter. We get to 14 to 22. And it says God raises up Hadad, an Edomite, a descendant of Esau. He's a royal family member to be Solomon's adversary. And so we learn why he's an adversary of Solomon. And he's not really an adversary of Solomon. He's David and his army captain Joab did something horrible to his people. So Joab and David, over a 6-month period, killed every male in his town, Hadad. So Hadad is an Edomite. So David and Joab killed every male in Edom. Hadad was able to get away and escape to Egypt. He was so well favored by the Pharaoh that he was able to marry the Pharaoh's sister-in-law. It doesn't name her, but it says the sister of Queen Taphanes. He has a son called Genubeth. So when Hadad finds out that David and the army commander Joab are dead, he wants to return home. We learn in verse 23 that there is yet another adversary that David made named Rezon. So Rezon had fled from his master, King Hadadezer, and became the leader of a gang. David conquered them, and Rezon and his men went to Damascus and began ruling there. So Rezon was also an enemy of Israel now. And we hear, verse 25, they're both causing chaos for Solomon because of what Solomon did on behalf of David. 26 through 28, we learn that there's another rebel leader, Jeroboam. Okay. And it says that he was a rebel, but it just says this story of rebellion, it doesn't, I don't feel like this is rebellion, but the Bible says this is rebellion. Okay. So he was working for Solomon. Solomon saw how great he was as a worker, puts him in charge of the labor force. And then a prophet, Ahijah, tells Jeroboam that he's going to take 10 tribes of Israel and be leading it. And tells him the same prophecy that God gives Solomon earlier in the chapter. It says, I'm going to take, your son is only going to get one tribe and I'm going to take 10 away from you. I'm not quite sure where the other one will go because if there's 12 tribes and Jeroboam is getting 10 and David's son is getting one, then what's going to happen to the other tribe? I don't know. Maybe I didn't read it well. I'll give 10 tribes to you, one tribe to the descendant of David. Okay. But the prophet warns Jeroboam, if you don't listen, you know, y- you're good. If you listen to what I tell you, then I will always be with you. And then he tells him, because of Solomon's sin, I'll punish David, though not forever. So after this, Solomon tries to kill Jeroboam. Jeroboam flees. And then we learn about this new book, the Book of the Acts of Solomon. Now, this doesn't appear in the Bible anywhere, but it says Solomon ruled, he was buried, and then his son Rehoboam became the next king. So, this is another book that we have not seen, along with the book of the book of Jasher. So we're going to find there's going to be another book because I've read ahead. There's another book that we don't know about too that doesn't appear in the Bible that's referenced. And a character is not referencing this book. This is just narration. But again, it's referencing something that isn't even included in the Bible now. So thank you so much for clicking on the video. I love you. God bless you and have a wonderful day.